Welcome to Pep Talk and Pickleball, the podcast where we explore empty nest life, health, fitness, and nutrition, all with a side of pickleball fun. I'm your host, Jill Lewis, your guide through this exciting phase of life. As a certified faster way to fat loss coach and fellow empty nester, I'm here to share insights, interview experts, and yes, sprinkle in some pickleball talk. Join me for weekly doses of motivation and laughter as we navigate health, happiness, and pickleball passion. Grab your paddle, join the conversation, and let's dive into Pep Talk and Pickleball. Welcome back to Pep Talk and Pickleball. This is your host, Jill Lewis, and I have the most special guest. I say that a lot, but this one really is the most special guest because it's my mother. This is Judith Hines Brummel. She is a young 87-year-old that I thought would be really fun to bring on the podcast because she is such a great example of living with a positive attitude and vitality and energy and good health. So who better to talk to than my mom? So welcome, Mom, to the podcast.
Hi, Jill. Happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much. So she agreed to do this with me in the morning because we both have busy lives down here in Florida, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Everyone's like, what are you doing down here, Mom? And she's always doing something. That's what keeps you, well, I think that's what keeps you going. You've got so many activities going on.
Yeah.
So, okay, talk to me a little bit, Mom, about your life, because I really do seriously think you're such a great example to so many women about what it means to really redefine life in what life looks like as an 87-year-old. I think most people, when they picture an 87-year-old, wouldn't picture somebody like you. So, what do you think were some like key habits or principles in your life that you've been able to maintain such good health?
Well, first of all, I was blessed with parents that really fed my brother and sister and I very well. They raised their own vegetables and they raised chickens and we ate very healthy. There were no preservatives. My mother canned every vegetable that came out of her garden. So we ate very healthy. So we had a good start in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really good. And they were both active in their life. And then when I became a registered nurse and saw the health issues that people had because they were so sedentary and just really didn't have good, healthy lifestyles. So pretty much from, I'd say by the time I had my first child, your oldest brother,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that my body wasn't looking quite like I wanted it to. So at that time, TV, this was 1963, and Jack LaLanne, if you all remember him, probably don't, but he was on tapes. They had tapes. He
Audio
wasn't
tapes.
really, yeah, audio tapes. So I would get those and exercise with Jack LaLanne. And my little son, as he grew up, he would exercise with me on this tape.
Yes. That's so cute.
And then as I had another child, and then I can see this in my mind. We'd be downstairs in our rec room doing exercises, and the kids would do them with me. And by that time, we had TV, and he was on television. So, and then it became exercise with Gloria and her 6 daughters. And so all my life, I've tried to exercise and keep healthy because I wanted to live a good, healthy, long life.
Right.
That answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What I do think it's interesting that you brought up the whole part about how you guys were living like seed to table before, before
Yes.
that was like a cool thing to say, or farm to table. I mean, you really were living that way out of necessity, probably because your
Yes.
parents, but they were big gardeners and you did eat all of those fresh foods, and it's interesting that over the years, how things became a lot more processed, even when we were growing up. I think that was just Americans in general were eating that way more often. So did you notice that switch for yourself or any side effects of that, or was that just something in modern society that you were excited about?
Well, I must say that the convenience of it all, I never really thought about it. I just know that my mother, she spent a lot of time canning and doing all that for our family. And
Hmm.
it took a lot of time. And as I had a job and all of a sudden, oh, these things in the frozen food department look really good.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to do all this stuff. I can just thaw them out and, or, whatever we did to cook.
Right.
So it just, I never really thought about processed foods. They
Hmm.
just sort of happened.
Yeah.
And then our way of cooking food, I never roasted vegetables in the oven. They were always cooked, in water and
Boiled.
just boiled. And then we thought we were so good because we put them in a, little rack and had a little steamer, and we thought that was wonderful. And it was just in what, the last 10 years that
Yeah.
I've been aware of roasting vegetables instead of
Yeah.
cooking them to death.
When we were kids and we ate the boiled Brussels sprouts as opposed to roasting them, it is a little different. That's so funny. Um, that's interesting though. You did have, after you got married, mom, I'm the youngest of five, so you have five kids and your body went through obviously a lot of changes over the years. All of us were 9-pound babies. So how did you maintain with five kids? You did work, and how did you maintain your physique?
I must say, back then, this was in, say, like the 70s.
Hmm.
I was always of the opinion at that time, which a lot of us were, to cut out carbohydrates,
Hmm.
which I now know is not a good thing to do. You need them. But
Right.
at that time, that's what I would do. I just would not eat carbs. Of
Interesting.
course, with five kids, you just are busy all the time.
And you were just going.
Yes, and I always, as I know now, I weighed every day. And if I gained a little weight, I would make sure I cut down those carbohydrates.
That you backed off.
Yes.
That's interesting. So, do you think like it's always interesting too? I mean, I'm sure for someone your age to see the difference in the physiques of women that have been, kind of glorified, the different shapes over the years and what's more in style versus not in style. Can you talk a little bit about that, like what you've seen through the decades?
Well, back, say, when I was in my 20s, um, your ideal shape was 36-inch bust, 26-inch waist, 36-inch hips for a person that was 5'6", which is and a half, which was I was at that time.
Hmm.
And so that's what we all, most of my friends, we tried to maintain that. But then,
That
as
sounds so funny to me to think 36, 26, 36. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, yeah. And then of course, some of my friends, as the years went on, they slacked off on
Hmm.
watching their weight, and I saw how their middles got very
Yeah.
thick,
Hmm.
and they got, you know, so
Yeah.
much overweight. And I thought, oh, that's not good for you. You're going to have
Yeah.
health issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, all kinds of things start happening. And I saw that in my friends, and I thought, I have got to keep this body under control so that I can be active. Because as I always tell my kids, I hope if the good Lord is willing, I hope to live to be 100 because I have all these wonderful 19 grandchildren. And now I have 3 great grandchildren, but I want to live to see them. I'd like to see my youngest, who's 6,
Hmm.
graduate from high school.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
So I know that you have to keep your health. You have to
Hmm.
stay in good health. And if
Yeah.
you don't do that, you're not going to live that long.
Right. Who were the bodies that women were like, you know, famous people, the
Oh,
shapes of people that were really popular, that women were like, oh, I just want, if I could look like her.
there were so many. Marilyn Monroe, Ava Gardner.
Hmm.
Those are two. Gina, Lola, Brigida.
Those are the ones early on. And then
Yeah.
as you got older, like what about in the 70s? Do you remember? Because didn't it changed? It went from kind of more curvy and then it got really skinny in
Oh
the
yeah.
70s,
Yes.
kind of changed.
Yes. I'm thinking of Mia Farrow,
Hmm. Yeah.
and
Well,
mm,
that one, well, that might have been late 60s, Twiggy. And I mean, there was just
oh yeah, Twiggy.
I just find it so interesting how, we go through these periods of time or these fads or whatever is the latest and greatest quote, on what your body shape is supposed to be. And I would just think, gosh, if we could always just realize body shapes are all different. And, sometimes, style tells us that one is better than the other. And how it's so ridiculous when you look at it back over all the decades.
Well, my sister, that's a good point because so much of this is heredity. Like my sister, had she had a very tiny waist and
Yes.
cage, but her hips
Hmm.
were what I would say bigger. They weren't fat, but that was her bone structure.
Right.
Hip bones were much wider than mine. And
Hmm.
when we look through the family history lines, we can see like she took after my mother's side of the family.
Hmm.
Women on that side all had those
The pear shape.
larger hip. Yeah. And I was after my dad's side of the family, where the women in that family had more, I don't know what you'd call it, straight
Yeah.
arms, weren't as wide. And none of the women on my dad's side of the family had the characteristics that my sister, she had,
Yeah.
her mom. So that plays a lot into what your body shape's going to look like.
Oh,
You
absolutely. And I
can't
always
age.
tell everybody it's like genetics load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. It's genetics, certainly you can't fight genetics, but you can do something about what you've been given. So back to when you're working. I remember when I was a kid, you still did the Jack LaLanne audio tapes. I remember you doing those sometimes. And you how did you, I mean, but really, Mom, like when I think about having all those kids and somehow there's something different because I hear a lot of clients that are upset with their lack of time that they have to take care of themselves. And so how did you manage that with a job with five kids, in the 80s and the early 90s to do it all?
Gosh, I don't know. By that time, of course, it was on TV.
Hmm.
And of course, at
But it
that,
wasn't like you were did you ever go to a gym?
no,
Mm-mm.
no, no, it was all done at home.
Yeah.
Because of my work schedule, I would usually do it in the morning.
Hmm.
Maybe I wouldn't have to be to work, say at the health department till 10 o'clock because I'd work later in the day,
Mm.
or I'd work nights. And so mornings seemed to be the best time. Like if I didn't get it done in the morning, it didn't get done.
Wasn't going to happen.
And then when you kids were older, I was doing that when you were at school. So you wouldn't have
Yeah.
seen me doing it. Of course, by that time it's on TV. I I'm not very good about doing it just by myself. I've got to have
Yes.
a visual, you know.
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You like to follow. And then now okay, so once you were retired and then you live in Florida in the winter, you'd go to classes, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, eh, I'm sorry to say that I don't do regular yoga anymore. I want to, and I'm trying to get back to it. But I had a couple of years of health issues with breast cancer, which is all taken care of now. And so but I got my balance wasn't as good, and that's a thing that older women told me about. I can hear them saying that for years before I reached the age I am now, and they would always say, "Oh, my balance isn't as good."
Hmm.
And by golly, is that the truth? And you really have to work on getting your balance back. And so anyway, after not being able to do regular yoga for a year, I couldn't balance anymore to do the yoga poses. So now I've been doing for the last 2 years, I've been doing chair yoga, which I'm trying really hard to get back to regular yoga because
Yeah.
I just like it. But here in Fort Myers, they have all kinds of classes that at my place where I live, our clubhouse,
Mm-hmm.
they have all kinds of health things. And when I'm back in Marion, we have a health yoga studio, or I don't know what you call it, better. Anyway, and I go there for classes. And I think that is so important because I have friends that are in their 70s that can't get up off the floor.
Mm,
And every day I practice getting up off of the floor without using any furniture, just using my body to get up.
that's smart. Yeah.
Because, you've heard those things on TV.
Yeah. I've
Falling
fallen.
and I can't get up. Now, if you got a broken hip, I can see why you can't get up, or a broken leg.
Right.
But just because you're weak, and so many of my friends tell me I can't get down on my knees and get up anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
exercise is so important.
I think I remember both of my grandmothers not being able, we would play games. We had to play it at a table because they said we can't sit on the floor.
That's
So I'm
right.
proud of you, Mom. You can still sit on the floor.
They couldn't cross their legs.
Oh, yeah, like crisscross applesauce. They
Yeah.
couldn't. Yeah, I
Now
know.
I can't get my knees down to the floor anymore.
Well,
But
that's okay.
anyway, another thing I wanted to say is I did go through fads of eating.
Yeah.
Like I did Weight Watchers, and I did nutrition, whatever that thing is that, oh, this one gal's on TV, she and her brother, the Osmonds,
Oh, yeah, Jenny Craig.
Yeah. And anyway, it they never worked, and they're full of processed foods. But
Oh, yes,
and
yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about like what fad diets you tried over the years. And that
well,
was one of them.
yes, yes, those they
I think it's like people want a short-term fix for something, so a quick way to lose 5 pounds. I'm just going to eat this program, these pre-made whatever that they had back. I mean, they still make them, I think, but
oh yeah.
yeah, like you said, they're just loaded with sodium and junk and preservatives and additives and fillers and I mean
When
emulsifiers and all the things that cause inflammation. And so when I'm always talking to women, it's like inflammation is the issue here. That's why you have aches and pains. That's why you have joint issues. That's why you feel sluggish. That's why you feel bloated. There's a lot of inflammation in the body that could be alleviated, I think, if we weren't eating so much processed stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So as you are, as once the kids are out of the house, obviously we ate pretty normal food when I was growing up, but how has your nutrition changed, say from like your like midlife to now? Mom said we can officially say she's old now that she's 80, over 85. That's always been a running joke in our family. Mom was like, I'm not old. I'm not 85 yet. You cannot call me old until I'm 85. And so then when she did turn 85, it was, we don't call her old, but she said we could if we if we had to describe it. Okay, so now how has your nutrition changed from back then, say like when you were my age to now?
well, because my husband and I, your dad, we
Hmm.
always like to eat.
Yes,
So
we're big eaters in our
yes.
family.
So I always try to follow a very good nutrition plan. And my husband enjoyed the food I made, so that was a joy. So we always ate what I would say is healthy food. Um,
And you cooked a lot.
yes, yes. I um, well, we ate our own breakfast and lunch,
Hmm.
and and then we ate supper together. And gosh, meat, vegetables, salad. It was always very important to have vegetables.
Yeah.
And
You've
meat.
literally had a salad with every dinner that you've had, I think, since I was born. I
No,
mean,
since I got married.
yeah, you
My
have had
husband
a
wanted a
small,
meat salad.
like a little house salad. Like you make
Yes,
it every day
yes,
with every meal.
yeah,
So, so after, I mean, but you and dad, when dad was still alive, you guys eating together, you still fixed meals for the two of you. And
yes.
what does that look like though? For people that really don't know, like, nutrition wise, I mean, tell us like, what are some typical meals that you're eating or that you and dad would eat, or even now that you're eating?
Yeah. Well, pork chops. He liked, well, we both like pork chops, so we would make those, and I do chicken, and well, all the meats, and then we had fish, um, and of course I made roast, and I used the crock pot a lot because you can put a lot of things in there, and then it's ready.
I
But
would say one thing is like, you really weren't a big casserole person. We didn't eat a ton of like a lot of casseroles growing up,
no,
and you also didn't fry very much.
no, I didn't. I didn't like the mess it made on the stove.
That is true. But
Yeah,
I mean, you grilled and you baked and you
yes,
sauteed, that's pretty much what the food, and like I said, and then you use the crock pot a lot. But I think that is a big part of how, you and dad can eat a lot of food. Same with me. I can eat a lot of food, but it's not casseroles with a lot, tons of just kind of calories void of nutrition. And we didn't eat fried food. I mean, you every once in a while when we were kids, you would fry a chicken, but like that wasn't like a main staple in our diets.
no, no. Yeah, like I said, it made such a
And
mess.
when we had another thing too, mom, and I feel like you're not going to brag on yourself, but I will. Like your side dishes were very simple. If it was just corn, it was just peas, it was just green beans. It wasn't laden with like cream of this or cream of that. We never ate that way growing up. And I think for you, it's like you don't even realize how healthy it was to you. That was just normal. But I think a lot of people grow up eating things in more casserole form or more, just to have a lot more empty calories in them.
Yes, very true. Yeah,
Another thing I think about, you know, uh, Randy grew up, he ate broccoli cheese casserole a lot. And that is, cream of chicken and cream of mushroom soup. And then it also has cheese whiz on top. And yeah, it's delicious, but we never ate that when I was growing. Like remember, if you think about Thanksgiving, I make corn casserole because that's Randy's side of the family. They love that. But when we had corn, it was just corn.
yes.
Didn't
Why
have
mess it up with all those other things?
I know. So I think that is something that you really can't overlook, and how that's why, we can joke around and say, yeah, you and dad eat a lot, but I mean, you guys eat a lot of pretty good, like
Yes,
just very nutrient dense, low calorie kind of food without even trying.
yes,
So,
that's very true. And
yeah.
we tried, when there was just the two of us, our desserts were very simple. Um,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Talk about that.
you know, we would I would make well, Jello. I know Jello isn't a big thing these days, but in all of our growing up years, and it became for my husband and I to make Jello with fruit in it that was dessert.
That was
And,
a treat.
yeah, and our just
Gosh, I
simple things.
forgot about that.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Jello, the yellow Jello with the green grapes in it is amazing. Like I love that to this day. And what else? Maybe there were mandarin oranges in it or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. And then there was like a straw. I didn't love the strawberry with the bananas in it. I just like the plain strawberry Jello. But I mean, yeah, you did do a lot of
Yeah, that
very,
was
very
pretty much.
simple, like a gel. You can't even really call it a Jello salad. It was like Jello with just some fruit in
Fruit.
it, and that was
Yeah,
it.
that was probably the most that we did for desserts. If I made a cake, because two of us couldn't eat it,
Yeah.
I would have, make cupcakes occasionally, and then we could eat one of those and I'd freeze the others,
Yeah.
but no, we weren't too big. And now my husband, we did eat, well, I couldn't eat ice cream because of an allergy, but he did eat a small, when I look at it today, when I get out the dishes for ice cream, I get a much bigger one out for people. But when he ate his ice cream, it was in like one of those half,
Yeah.
or, it wasn't a lot.
No, it was
And
like a tiny little ramekin. I mean, it
yeah,
was small.
yeah. And I think today the dishes have just gotten bigger.
Yes, the dishes have gotten bigger, the bowls, the plates, the utensils are larger, everything is.
Yeah.
Even if you look at like our coffee cups compared to what they used to be, you know. I mean, my coffee cup can hold like 16 ounces of coffee, but it's insane. Um, the other dessert, we always had a little something. If it wasn't ice cream, then it was like you would make the pudding. I don't know if you
Oh,
made the instant or the kind that you cooked, but
it was usually,
you would make pudding. I remember because I didn't like the skin on the top, so you would put the saran wrap over it so that it didn't have that skin on it. But
forgotten.
that would be like a tiny, kind of like the size of the snack packs that they make now, but you
Yes.
actually made the pudding.
Yes.
Um, so we did have desserts and stuff on a weeknight or whatever, but it was just a tiny bit. And I think that's probably another lesson here that we don't even realize is how your portions were like maybe the meat or the sides, the vegetables, salad, all of that was a lot of food, and it was filling. But the the desserts were small. It was just enough just to get a little taste. And it wasn't like we had you could go back and get seconds because there weren't any left. There weren't any left for anybody. Same thing with a birthday cake. I mean, if you made a birthday cake, the seven of us would eat it and it was gone.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. That's so funny. So what do you like when you talk about people now suffering with, just chronic illness like diabetes or what are the gosh, all the others, high blood pressure, things like that.
Heart
Um
trouble. Mhm.
yeah, heart health. And what do you think at what age? Because I can talk about that to my clients and go, this is important. If a client's in her 40s or 50s, like this is important and we need to think about this and like your future and how you want to feel at 70 is pretty much how you want to feel right now. But as someone that's your age, can you speak to that a little bit about, maybe in your 40s and 50s, you're not thinking that way, but man, at 87, it's like I know you're so appreciative that you kept yourself together and that you're, feeling so good. Like when did when did you start noticing the shift there with people, your own age or that things started coming back to haunt them?
Well, I think when I was around 50, I did notice then that my friends had always been a little heavy,
Hmm.
all of a sudden put on lots of weight,
Yeah.
and they weren't doing anything to take it off. And now that they're in their 70s, late 70s, say, the ones that exercised and uh, have been conscious of their weight look so good.
Hmm.
And the ones that just said, "Oh, exercise, that's not for me." They don't look very good, and their legs are swollen. They have sores on their legs, uh,
Mm.
and so many. As I look around our world that I live in today, the people that aren't active just get heavier and heavier, and they slow down, and they can't do things. And the people that have, like, I'm down here in Florida right now, and people, you just have to stay active. There are very few people my age down here that aren't active. And I've had the good fortune
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I bought this place 20 years ago. So, I feel very blessed. But
Right.
I have friends in Illinois that aren't able to get away, but yet they go to the gym or
Mm-hmm.
they work out or they watch and they're doing fine. But if you don't exercise, you don't eat well, your body, when you get older, you are going to have many problems. I've seen it in personal life, in my nursing career, and I just didn't want to be like that. If
Right.
I could do something to take care of this body that, I was blessed to receive, it's my job to take care of it so that I can enjoy my my later years. Now, I could be hit by a Mack truck or something, but to be healthy and to be able to do things and do things with your children and your grandchildren,
Yeah.
I think
And
is so important.
and to be yeah, independent, you know.
Oh, yes, to be independent. Oh my goodness.
The
Yeah.
other thing I think too is, there's studies coming out about they're calling Alzheimer's the type 3 diabetes. And it's like that there's a lot of lifestyle factors that are maybe playing a part in people getting, that terrible disease. So, I mean, I can't think of anything worse, really. I mean, there's a lot of terrible illnesses and diseases to get, but that one of like dementia or Alzheimer's sounds just heartbreaking and terrible. So, like another reason to decrease the sugar, in your life, to keep moving your body, things like that. So important. So, how would you say we've kind of danced around it a little bit, but really, like, how do you think your nutrition has evolved over the years? So from someone that was, a young mom to, working through your midlife and then, helping dad, and then now, retired, you're widowed, you're 87. Like, how do you think your nutrition has evolved through all of that?
Well, I hear so many people say that they don't want to cook just for one person. I mean, you could be a single person and be 60 and you say, well, or 50. And I just don't want to bother with that. I'll just go run down to the store and get some fast food thing. No, you can grill. I mean, not grill. Well, you can grill too, but
Hmm.
I put I put food on a tray and I roast it. And I roast chicken and roast different kinds of lean sausages. And I just do a lot of food and seafood is great, salmon and those kind of things. And you can grill healthy vegetables and healthy meat that isn't covered with a lot of gooey sauces. And it's very simple. And in what, 40 minutes or less, you've got, you make your salad, you've got your vegetables, and there's no reason that you aren't eating well if you are a single person by yourself, living alone. You
Hmm.
cook very, and it's so important to keep that nutrition going because if your body doesn't have the fuel, you're going to suffer for
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Just that, I don't know, for whatever reason, some people like to cook, some people don't, but learning just some few basic things and having that in your back pocket your whole life really does come in handy. And knowing that it's so simple. I mean, how easy is it for us to throw in like a salmon fillet with the minimal seasoning and then throw in some vegetables, stick it on a cooking tray, and 20 minutes later, you've got this a really good meal that's filling and don't you think that it's like you just get used to when you're used to eating healthy, when you don't eat healthy, that's what you notice when you start feeling bad.
Yes, yes, it does. It makes you sluggish, and then
Hmm.
you just don't want to do what you should be doing.
Right.
And
I
it's
thought of something else I wanted to ask you about too, Mom. Like when you go to parties or you and Dad used to go on fabulous vacations, things like that. How do you treat your nutrition? on in those types of circumstances? Do you watch what you're doing, or do you just enjoy yourself and don't worry about it? How do you handle that?
Well, if it's a one time, I could say it's one day,
Mm-hmm.
then, I splurge maybe and have some
Mm-hmm.
luscious whatever, because, you want to be able to enjoy whatever their special is or whatever. But generally, we would try to find a good, uh, either baked or uh, roasted or something, not covered in a lot of sauces.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a buffet, that's really easy because then you can pick out your own, you can see. Um, but I just think I don't remember us ever.
I
We
don't feel like you guys ever, I feel like you guys always did a really good job of just splurging and enjoying the moment on your vacations. And especially I've been at parties with you or going out to dinner to celebrate birthdays and things like that. You eat the dessert. You're totally down to eat the dessert, assuming it doesn't have gluten and assuming it doesn't have
Yeah.
milk. You are good to go with that. But I think it's just because your normal routine, so like 90% of the time, you maybe even just 80% of the time, you are really just so healthy with what you're eating that trips and celebrations don't matter. So you're able to kind of just eat what you want without really having any negative side effects as far as like, gaining fat or whatever.
Yes, very true.
That's what it seems like to me. Yeah. Do you have any parting words, Mom, for any women that are out there that are like, in the thick of things, they're super busy, they're trying to just kind of, make all the ends meet, and maybe they're not prioritizing themselves?
Well, I think stress is really very paramount in today's life. So many women are trying to balance and keep everything in all the balls in the air, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a faith-based person, so I think a time of prayer is good, and say, "Dear God, help me get through this." And sometimes,
I
but
always think about Aunt Marcia saying, just Jill, just say, "Oh God, help."
because she had 7 children,
Yeah.
and stress levels. But I think to be able to learn to deal with stress is really important,
Mm-hmm.
and just to take time for yourself, even though that's sometimes really hard to do. Just 15 minutes.
Yeah, and letting your family know, I think is a big part of it. Like this is, mom does everything. Like mom needs 30 minutes. Mom needs, this is for so that I can be stronger and I can have more energy for all of you guys. I need this time for myself. And, you know, hopefully people's spouses, out there are understanding of that and working as a team, which is always important, that you've
Yes.
got somebody there that you can lean on to say, like, I need help.
Yes.
I
I'm
need
right.
help. Like and I don't you, isn't it interesting? Like I always think it's the mental load that women carry, um, is what causes so much stress, for us because, we're the ones, not all the time, but most families, um, if a husband and a wife are together, it's the wife that is carrying the mental load of the family, where, she's thinking about what are the kids eating at breakfast and lunch? She's thinking about their folders that they're turning in for school. She's thinking about what activities at what time. She's thinking about bath time. She's thinking about, do I have these groceries in the house? There's just a lot of stuff, or like doctor's appointments, all of dance lessons, whatever. Whereas maybe the husband's not quite as in tune. And maybe that's just how it was for you and I.
Well, I hear young women uh, today that I know sharing that with me, and I always tell them that my husband was a big one about communication,
Yeah.
especially between the spouses. That you let them know what's going on, and if you don't tell them, how do they know?
Exactly. And you have to be able to communicate that before things escalate to where you're at your wit's end, right?
Yeah, because my husband would say, I'm not a mind reader.
Exactly. Exactly. Side note, I think you and dad, I mean, yes, like you've always maintained great health and everything and really and dad did a good job of it too. I mean, obviously he's passed away now, but the two of you together, did you make a conscious decision that you two were going to maintain health? Did you talk about that at all in your relationship?
Yes, we both wanted to have good, healthy lives. And yes, we both knew that health was important, eating, exercise. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we always said we were a team, and
Mm-hmm.
yes, and that we were a team on that also. Very
And
much.
you guys had things you wanted to do. I mean, you all, when you talk about activity, you guys have traveled the world together, and that takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of, you got to be, young, young and not in maybe in numbers, but I mean, just young at heart, and your body's got to be feeling good, and to do some of the things that you guys did together.
Yes, and another thing, there are so many wonderful things to do out there. Like last fall, no, not last. Yeah, no, it was in this last summer. Um, I have your brother lives, or one of
Mm-hmm.
your brothers lives out in Seattle, and I've made some good lady friends out there that he has known, their neighbors, and they took me on a um, overnight camping out in the Cascade Mountains. And this one gal who's in her early 70s and the other gal who was 69, they said, come on, Judy, go with us and we're going to take this hike in the mountains. Well, my son bought me some hiking sticks or whatever you call those things.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let's go. I hiked 6 miles. Now, I mean, it wasn't climbing up. I mean, I'm not climbing up the mountain, hand and whatever,
Right.
but I did walk and we ascended into these low mountain areas, 6 miles. And I was able to do that. And they were shocked when at the end of it, I told them, I said, well, that was pretty good for at that time. I was 86. They almost fell over. They said, no way. So
We
that
would have never taken you if we knew you were 86.
no.
You wouldn't have passed the release form.
So anyway, to be able to do that and see the beauty and I thought, if I hadn't taken care of myself all these years, I wouldn't be able to do these things.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important for nutrition and the program that you're running and doing, I think is so important. And you've taught me a lot that like I say, I don't get on the scale every morning like I used to because you, you know what your patrons know what your people know what you say about those kind of things. But
Yeah.
you taught me a lot about nutrition, and I look at labels a lot more
Hmm.
than I used to, and really
Yeah.
so how important that all is.
Yeah. And I'm going to circle back to when we were talking about the convenience foods and things. There's sometimes I always tell people, processed foods, there's ultra processed foods, and then there's just like a processed food, which isn't really that bad. Like the process of freezing vegetables or fruit and putting them in the, container and then putting it in the grocery store. Like that is not a bad processed food, but like the ultra processed foods, we're in a modern society. You got to lean on that kind of food every now and then. It's just that we just don't want it to be like the bulk of your diet, or the bulk of your diet, like the most of the food that you're eating, you want it to be from what we call whole food nutrition, what like mom was doing, that farm to table kind of style food without even realizing that's what they were doing. But just eating is like, as simple as you can. And once you get used to doing that, you'll never want to go back. Then I start going to restaurants and I'm like, oh, it's covered in some kind of weird sauce that I know I don't need that's going to end up hurting my stomach. And, you kind of just crave the more simple type of eating, and it's good for you the way it was meant to be, eaten. So, um, It's interesting how, you can live in this ultra modern, world with the conveniences, but you can still eat as healthfully, as possible, which is what you do. You've been a great example, Mom.
Thank you. I've tried.
You have. So, all right. Well, the other thing, you do is that you get a lot of steps in a day. You walk every day. I know you didn't mention that, but I know you do your chair yoga, but you also walk every day. So I think that's really important. You get outside as much as you can, even when you're in Illinois. If you have to put a winter coat on, you go out and you walk. So, and people notice, I think you're such a good example. And I tell a lot of my clients this, we're all like influencers in our own lives and we don't even realize it. So there's people that see you out walking that are like, oh, look at Judy out there walking. That's so inspiring, and you're just out there doing it and listening to your music or not even noticing that you, make an impact on other people's lives just by being such a great example.
And a thing that people get as they get older, they start shuffling. And
Oh, yeah. That's a good thing to bring up, Mom.
yeah, because when you're walking, you're striding,
Yes.
you're taking strides, heel toe,
Mm-hmm.
heel toe. But when you start shuffling, then you trip over things and it's
The
not good.
shuffling isn't good. Oh, this just reminded me of something before we jump off here, Mom. When I'm at the gym down here in Florida, I'm working out with a lot of people that are older, and the men, it's more of the men that I see doing this, but for anyone that's listening, it's the shuffling and walking reminds me of, it's like you're not taking a full step anymore, kind of like in the gym when you stop moving through a full range of motion on your exercises. So for instance, if you were going to do an overhead press, you've got dumbbells in your hands and you take them all the way up when your arms are straight and then you come all the way back down. What I notice is men just kind of go like half C's, they just do a little bit. And it's almost like a little pulses instead of taking the full range of motion through something. It'd be like doing just like a little baby like top half squat, or maybe a like a bicep curl that you don't fully extend the curl. You're not taking it all the way out and all the way in. So that's something I really noticed with a lot of men. And I don't go and correct them, but I want to say you need to take this through, because you're limiting your mobility, which is what you were basically saying with the shuffling. You're limiting your mobility when you stop taking a full stride.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting what the things that we can pay attention to as we get older. So I'm proud of you, Mom. Love that you're working on balance. Love that you work on trying to stay independent and taking care of yourself. And you're just an inspiration.
Stay active.
All right. Love you, Mom.
Love you too, dear. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.